Hi everyone, I'm Poiupoiu. I am the AV director slash AV nerd slash Stucky slash glutton for punishment this year. This is
I'm
Steve.
Steve Esposito, and my regular job, I'm an environmental specialist in Knox County Air Quality Management, and I'm the guy everywhere I've ever worked that when they need a database, I'm the one that ends up making it, and I dabble in audio-visual like Steve.
You've probably seen my name a couple times. Like I said, I did the FFmpeg talk. There's actually an FFmpeg workshop that's at 4 o'clock today. So if anyone's interested in that, come on to the workshop area at 4. And I have a couple of videos I've already prepared for you guys, whoever wants to do it, and get some hands-on experience using a command line program to edit video. I think that's kind of cool, actually. So first off, what is your name? We've said. What is your quest to teach you guys about audio, video recording, editing, rendering, and if you guys have any questions to ask us. And finally, what is the average bitrate video of an encoded video using CRF?
7, no 10. Ah!
Exactly. That actually is a trick question. So, whenever we're doing video of any kind to record it, there's really 3 major steps, and that's all. You just record it, you edit, and you render it. Easy done, we're done. Right? Now. So recording, let Steve take a little bit from here.
Okay, recording, for example, what we were talking about before, backup audio that I've just now got out. My primary audio right there is a Tascam DR06. Both of these devices are about $100. And also I have audio on the camera over there. And you need to start with the best audio you can start with. Luckily in this room we don't have a bunch of extra noise. Actually, there's a little bit of noise from the next room that's probably not going to get picked up by the equipment. If it did, you could do it in post, but you're going to lose some of the audio from the subject. Wireless recording gear. You ever hear that kind of buzzing noise on some audio, some videos where it emanates from the equipment picking up cell phones, cell phone transmissions. Well, if you're not using wireless, you eliminate almost all that problem. And now it's a whole lot easier to do that. This is about the same size as a lavalier transmitter. You can put this on a person, you can put a lavalier microphone in it, or any kind of microphone you want, and clip it on them and have it on their person rather than transmitting it back to a main recording. Removing the noise later, you can remove the noise that you don't want. You're also almost always going to remove sound that you do want. If there were a fan running here, I could take a 10-second clip of the room noise before I started speaking, and I could have that in Audacity. I can pick that out as noise for the noise removal filter it has, and then apply it to the entire audio, and it'll remove every frequency that I picked in that clip. Problem is, part of those frequencies are going to be the ones my voice uses, or that my voice transmits. So you end up degrading what you part of what you wanted. So getting rid of the extra noise beforehand. Also, I don't have any for this, but the windscreens and stuff for your microphones, it gets rid of loads of extra noise. Different thing, ambient noise, sometimes you want it. So go out and record some extra ambient noise, and it covers up all kinds of sins and all kinds of mistakes in your, where you have two different, say you got two different scenes, they're supposed to be in the same, or two different clips, they're supposed to be in the same place at the same time. You can take ambient noise at a third time across the entire, all, 2, 3, 4 clips, and it blends everything in to make it sound like it was all shot at once. So,
I was actually going to say, one of the other things that a friend of mine, he does a lot of audio recording and audio PA stuff for families' weddings. He said that one day, over one of the weddings, he got perfect audio that you would think, just the speakers, no ambient noise. Well, then he listened back to it and was like, this doesn't sound right. There's no ambient at all. So he actually, a day later, realized this and drove out to the area again, which was about a 30-minute drive, and just sat there with a recorder, and sat there for like 10 minutes just recording this ambient noise of birds chirping, of trees, the branches and the wind, the leaves and everything, and then was able to overlay that back into the audio recording. So, as Steve was saying, sometimes ambient noise is good.
my theory on that is your ears always have to have something to do, and you'll lose attention. So, or the viewer will lose attention. So, it's better to have some kind of sound going through your entire video than no sound, especially obvious no sound where there should be something.
Yeah. But I think the big thing is, if you can get it done right the first time in the recorder, in camera, if you can get it done right the first time without having to go back in a $1 million program to tweak the audio just a little bit, get it right done in camera. It is significantly easier to deal with. So, and just a heads up, this is very loosely thrown together. So if you have any questions, any suggestions, any comments, feel free to go during. Yes, sir.
I'm gonna say that audio is one of the most ignored things too, and audio can be the difference between lackluster video and a high quality video.
Yes, absolutely. Steve was actually telling me a little bit about a movie.
Back when I was a youngster in high school working at a movie theater, the film Alien, the original one, came out, and the theater in Knoxville that was playing the premiere for Knoxville, the sequence where Sigourney Weaver gets into the escape craft and is about to leave and send the alien to its doom, they lost the sound for that whole portion of the movie.
Oh, right.
And this isn't a bunch of people watching it on the internet for nothing. This is people who paid, a couple bucks to go see a movie. Oh, they didn't give a refund either. But there's not that much sound going on in that portion of the movie. But what there is makes every shot and every scene in that movie. And like you said, for some reason, a lot of people ignore it. It's not for lack of people being told, because you watch just any how-to on making a video, and any professional emphasizes how important the sound is. So that's something that amateurs like us shouldn't ignore.
And Ed, by show of hands, who is all disappointed with Star Wars Episode 1? Not The Force Awakens, The Phantom Menace. Little Anakin whining, yippee, and all that. Yeah. If you're not raising your hand, you haven't seen it. There is one scene, though, that whenever my wife is out of town, I turn the surround sound up. I sit in the middle of the room, and that's the pod racing scene. If you've never listened to that with surround sound, oh, it is a treat. Actually hearing the pod racers go right past your ears, oh, that's good stuff. But yes, absolutely, sound is critical. It's not just all a bunch of pretty pictures. So, any others?
If you're
recording the sound separate from the video, how are you syncing them back up again?
I can actually demonstrate that here in a second.
Tell you how I do it is because I do it all the time. Because I've got 3 recording devices here. One of them has video, and like if I go back in Lightworks and do this, your soundtracks, you get a visual of your soundtracks, and just line up the peaks, and you're right there. And if you
You're looking for an element of sounding that syncs with a picture.
I am, but that's why I'm looking for it. But I've never used one of those clapper things or anything like that. That's what those are for. And but I'm looking to line up the audio to match up with what I'm seeing on the screen.
Looking for something that's happening on the screen
Right.
and lining it up with the sound.
Or are you looking at the audio from the camera source and then lining up your other
If
good
I
audios?
didn't
with
have
that?
audio from the camera
Yeah.
source,
Well, I was thinking, if you had like maybe not as good audio from the camera source, you'd still see the waves on it
Right.
and could line up your really good audio
Right.
with it. But
exactly.
then otherwise you'd have to sort of
Yeah.
do a little slider on
Yeah.
an
So
activity.
case in point, this was one of the previous talks from yesterday. So you can kind of see this track, I believe, is what is being recorded off the slide computer here, and this is what was recorded from the camcorder, that one right there. So you can see the 2 different wave tracks, audio tracks there, but you can see this one goes up a little bit, this one goes up a little bit, and so it had to actually go in, all right, click it, listen to a little bit, and if it's off by a frame, you'll hear it. You get this weird echo going. A bunch of programs, including this editor, do have a set audio reference and the line audio to reference. That's handy whenever it works. Yes, sir.
Can I give you just one suggestion?
Absolutely.
I play this right here.
Mhm.
I just call it AV sync. Play this and let the camera record it and let the audio record it. And it's color bars with tone. And then the camera, when the color bars go off,
Right.
sound goes off, you can sync it up
Yeah.
that way also.
I need to get that.
I'll email it to you.
Awesome. Thank you. I've also
See, now I can use that to sync all my stuff.
Yeah.
And you can do it before or after, as long as they continue.
Right.
Record.
Still
And a lot of-
session.
in a lot of video podcasts, there was one called Frono's Photo. I do dabble in photography on the side, and it's all about photography, photo, go figure. And a lot of his I think he said before that what he does is walks up to the camera where he can see everyone and just goes. So now you have a giant waveform. You can say, oh, there it is. So what we're doing for PhreakNIC this year is the slide recording computer right over here. It's actually not getting I'm recording audio off of the onboard microphone, but I'm not actually using that audio at all. It's not a very good source for that. But I have that so I can actually line them up later on. Line up the different feeds. So
There are instances where you don't want your audio in sync with the video as it was recorded. I don't know how I'm going to do this yet. I haven't decided, but several years ago I recorded an anvil shoot. I don't know if anybody's familiar with those. You take 2 anvils, you put gunpowder in between them, and you blow it up, and watch the anvil go off. Yeah, well, the distance between my camera, its microphone, and the explosion is significant enough to where the noise from the explosion gets to the camera much later than the electrons do, or the photons do. Sorry, Star Trek guys. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to sync the sound to the explosion or if I'm going to leave it the way it is. And one of the problems with professional movie makers is they sync the sound to the explosion no matter how many hundreds of miles away it is. So I'm probably gonna have to do that because viewers are used to expecting that.
Yeah. Same thing. Has anyone ever? You've been to baseball games? You're sitting up in the nosebleed section. Guy hits the ball.
Yeah, that's
Exact thing. Sound. Oh, what was it? Light travels a little bit faster than sound.
Yeah.
That's the time code in the top row of that row there.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the time.
Where did that come from?
This. All this is just part of This is just a video editor that.
That's
I've been
down-
using-
that's added by the video editor.
Yes, this is all done by the
So
video
you're-
editor.
You're laying those other tracks down, and then what will that sort of lock the time code to the video track? And
It's not actually pulling the time code from the actual source files here. This is just the overall what will be end up being
that's just where
rendered.
it's sort of- that's
Correct.
not real- That's not source time code.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Will any of these systems lay out source time code? Is this price range that you're talking about there?
Our price range is free. And I'm not sure. I don't know if Lightworks does that or not.
I am honestly. Not
I
sure.
have only looked into that once and I forgot what I found. So, the only thing or the first thing I would suggest is just take your favorite search engine, look for time code and encoding, and in whatever program you're thinking about using, like Lightworks or Movie Maker does not do that at all.
Mhm.
Not that I know of.
Yeah. So.
Could you pick a point on all three of those tracks, your two audio tracks and your video tracks, and define that as a particular time code, and then have it lay out the time code on throughout the rest of the track and as part of the track, so that then you could bring another track, you still have that time code there for that particular track. Does that make sense?
Not quite.
So if you like added in
It
another
makes sense
video
to me,
track
but
that you wanted to
my
switch
answer is
between
I don't know.
or merge between.
I've never seen one that does what I think you're trying to get at, but that's because you're actually creating your time code there. So you could grab any one of those tracks there and define a slice out of it and pull that out and then slide the other piece over, okay?
Right.
And then you've just completely altered the time code. So any encoding that was
But
on the clip itself is really useless anyway.
well, no, it wouldn't be useless if it tell you exactly where you were on that track. I mean, it wouldn't be a continuous, if you're looking at the time code just on that track, it wouldn't be continuous if it was cut.
Right.
But it would still, if you wanted to, if you knew a particular piece that you wanted to use, and you had the code for where it started and where it stopped, you could find it easily.
If you recorded, just got the video input of the longest piece you have, input it and save it,
Mhm.
then bring that back in, that is now your time code, then you have time code
It's gonna be
established.
saved as part of the track.
Well, it's gonna be the same length as it was.
As far as I know, it does not, the stuff we use does not encode a time code into the video.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only thing that I have come across is in this one I can actually tell it to overlay a hour, minute, second frame or even frame wrap. So on the actual.
You'd have to have a video container that included that time code. Are there any video containers that do that?
The 70 on line 21 would be, if our FFmpeg, maybe you could output what was on line 21 if it came in from a professional video source. at that
Right.
time code.
I want to say actually with I thought this was kind of a slick trick in track one's camera. If you really do look at the raw file that it pulls off, it actually encodes a subtitle. That subtitle is actually the time code for that source. So
Turn it on and off.
let me see.
You could output the subtitle.
The magic of
What
FFmpeg.
that is, it's the man watching.
What was the one that we did? Dark Knight? Yeah, Dark Knight.
In MPEG, there's a presentation timestamp that can be output. The SOF field start of frame.
Okay, so that actually was I did some tricks to actually get that one in, so it must have stripped that time code off of that. But I mean, I see what you're saying, and I've only seen that done on the recording media. I've not seen our system do it. But continuing on, as you kind of saw a little bit now, we have everything recorded in, we have everything cleaned up a little bit. I think Steve's going to talk a little bit more. That's going to come up later on. But in editing, this is the spot that I was just like, ugh. And I spent weeks just trying to figure out which editor to really start with. So thankfully there was Wikipedia that just said list of Linux nonlinear video editors. So in Linux land, of course, everything pulls from FFmpeg, which can read everything. So in Linux, I found the big couple ones were Kdenlive, which is what you saw a minute ago, which I've used the most. Lives, which I remember that one being popular even back to like 08, 07. So that one's been around for a while. I've not had a whole lot of experience with that one. Blender, the 3D rendering program, actually does have a nonlinear video editor built into it. I took one look at it and said, pass.
It's impossible. Does anybody here edit video in Blender? See, you're mortal, you're human.
The one that I thought was originally interesting, and I was going to spend so much time working with it, was OpenShot. And the story behind that was the guy says, there's not really any good video editors. I want a Windows Movie Maker, but for Linux. So he was a software developer and decided to do the Linux way. I'll make my own. There's a lot of issues with that one, in my opinion. So I'll leave it as that. Windows, of course, has the very popular, installed by mandatory everywhere, the Windows Movie Maker. So I think you've used that one quite a bit.
Right, and you've got multiple versions. Actually, one upgrade they did on about 4 years ago stopped my it was like an Apple move. They improved the program and then it wouldn't run on my computer anymore. And then I went looking it up, and I didn't even bother jumping into any of the threads because they were all saying exactly the same thing I would say. Users saying it stopped working on my computer. Microsoft saying, oh, well, you need to upgrade your video card. And the user saying, I'm using a laptop. And just going into that. Anyway, 2.6.2 has a lot of the features. It has features that I use, and also version 6, Movie Maker 6. And you can still get those. You just can't get them directly from Microsoft. Actually, one of them you can't, I forget. Anyway, look around for them. There's good copies of them out there. The latest ones, they took some features out that I like to use, like typewriter graphics across the screen, and they took that out. Blender has that now. I just don't know how to use it. But anyway, the different versions on Movie Maker they've got different features that you might be interested in. So don't just look at the newest one and say it's not doing what I want. Double check Movie Maker 6 is a good place to start. And I don't know of anything in Movie Maker 6 that is I don't know of anything in the newer versions that is not present in the older versions, other than rendering 2.6.2 does not render in as high pixels per inch as the newer ones. Also, something really in their corner though that we run into in well, maybe not you so much on the frame rate issue. Like most of what you're using is
stuff that's recorded here, it's all on the same frame rate. So you don't run into this issue like I do where I'm getting video, because I'm working on a documentary and I don't have it from a bomber from 1972, and got the video and relevant video from multiple sources that is at vastly different bit rates, or vastly different frame rates. Blender, you can mess with it in there, it's a pain. Lightworks, you're stuck. You have to convert it all to the same bit rate before you start at it. It will not import if you're doing something at 60 frames per second and you're importing something that's 60 frames per second, and then you try to also add something that's 24 frames per second, it won't take the 24 frame per second on it. Movie Maker will take all of them and put them out into whatever frame rate you want, whatever resolution you want. And it's not the movies. You're making a movie. It's not like in the movies where you can increase your resolution with the click of the mouse. It will have that resolution, but the picture won't look any better than it did at the old resolution. Anyway.
And that's one strength that actually Linux does have a leg up in, because it uses FFmpeg to pretty much everything. I keep going back to it because it's an awesome program. But to actually, whenever it imports things, anyone ever use Audacity? You ever try to import an MP3 into there? It uses FFmpeg, encodes it into memory or in a file and everything as an uncompressed file. Ever try doing the same thing with an AAC audio? AAC, same thing. On Linux, if you can actually just drag and drop a video into Audacity, and it'll strip out just the audio. FFmpeg.
Oh,
So,
and that's not turned on? Did they just start turning it on new installs?
I'm not sure how it is and it's been there for a while on Linux. I'm not sure about the Windows world.
It's when I had to install that separately. If you're using Audacity on a Windows machine, and you try to import something and it doesn't import, Google how do you import this into Audacity, and it'll send you to FFmpeg, and you'll get that, and you install a couple other things, and you're done, and you're golden.
So,
Just do a different operating system.
all you have to do is change your operating system and how you do
Sure.
everything.
Yeah.
So Mac, of course, has Final Cut Pro. Everyone who has a Mac has that and has used that. There's a couple cross platforms out there. Adobe's. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank. Steve, what was Adobe's?
Expensive.
The expensive one, yes. That works, I know, on Mac and Windows.
Final Cut.
After
After Effects is,
Premiere, that's it. Thank you.
and then the Corel
Yeah.
is
Um,
still different.
maybe I'm not entirely familiar with that one. Blackmagic, they actually have some on there. That one was a more recent one. It originally started out as a color grading system, but then they added some nonlinear video editing capability to it as well. Shotcut is an interesting one to me. So that with Linux, they all depend, a lot of the things, OpenShot, Kdenlive, and a couple of others, all depend on called the MELT framework. MLT stands for Media Lovin' Toolkit. I don't make it up. So really, Kdenlive and a bunch of others are just really front ends to it, and then they create all of the files you need. So like, for example, so this is part of the reason I like Kdenlive is it can actually output a shell script, which is great if I want to, say, close my laptop and just offload all the processing onto a 6-core box that's just hanging out in my hotel room right now. So, but you can just do darknet, and that will actually render the video. So Oh, yeah. So this is actually melt language, or NLT language. So you can see it talks about the different, this was just a title, but it has the width, height, and all of these other things. Same thing down here for, this is the slides that were dumped from one of those similar setups. So yeah, about 500 lines. I'm not gonna write that one up by hand. So free-ish Lightworks, they have
Licensing fees.
licensing fees. I was gonna say their claim to fame and is they actually have been used. That Lightworks actually has been used in a full motion picture that's been produced in Hollywood. You can get a free trial version.
The free version, the limitations on the free version are the highest output you're going to get is 720p. And after, I think, the first month that you're using it, you got to log in every week to use it. Otherwise, you can do everything you want. And I covered this, I think, the last two times that I spoke here. What you can do if you're doing something like the documentary I'm working on, you can get a 1 month license. It's like $30. So when you get everything all set and everything you want, what you want to output to 1080p or higher, or anything above 720p, get the 1 month license, render it, and then if you really don't need to render anything else, then at that resolution, you don't need to pay for the whole thing, like 300 and something bucks for the year or lifetime, whatever that is. But now I encourage people to do that if you can. But if you're on a budget, $30 is a tenth of 300 and something bucks. So let's see. Lightworks, from my experience, you go into the forums and ask a question, whether you paid for it or not, you're getting roughly the same help desk experiences you get from Microsoft or Apple, which is, something's wrong with your stuff, our stuff is perfect.
That's fine in the lab.
Yeah, so anyway.
It's interesting though that I think Lightworks actually does have a Linux version. So
It does. And Mac and Windows.
right, so that's that and Shotcut, which I remember I got off on a tangent there. Shotcut actually was written by the creator of NLT, so I'm very tempted to try that one out after all of PhreakNIC 20 is all said and done.
Something you can do with Lightworks and Blender that you cannot do in a lot of the free stuff is picture-in-picture, split screen, that kind of stuff. You can do it all day in both of those, and it's not hard to learn how to do in Lightworks. But Movie Maker absolutely does not have that capability. I don't know about some of the other stuff out there, but you can do that. Are we even going to show that, what we exchanged?
I couldn't find the.
Oh,
So that's what. So Steve actually had created a video from was it last year or something? It was earlier on in the year, and he actually had sent it to me. I tried to recreate it using Kdenlive to do it all. And I think with yours, you actually had to use Lightworks to render a video with a picture-in-picture, and then
Right.
you imported that back into another
I went back and forth between Movie Maker and Lightworks. I mean, all my clips that I wanted to use, all at the same frame rate in Movie Maker, output all those, put them all in the same folder, maybe And then went into Lightworks and did the picture-in-picture thing. What it was from, the base video was from Penn Gillette's Penn Sunday School podcast that comes on every Sunday. There was, and that he just had this whole sequence that reminded me of several other things. So I put those in picture-in-picture. And the one was from a protester against, who's that, Milo, I can't pronounce his name, apologies, but anyway, there was Penn was doing this move that reminded me of something I'd seen before. Then I remembered what it was. It was someone who's now got the nickname on the internet as Trigglypuff, and then I inserted those back and forth. Penn was doing that, talking about a snapping turtle, and it was just off from there. So, and one of the other guys was talking about ripping his shirt off like Hulk Hogan, which reminded me of Right Said Fred, and so I got a clip of that in there. And anyway, that was, I just had fun with it.
I was just gonna say, I've done green screen in OpenShot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like screen within a screen. You know, if you filmed it with a green, one of the tracks with a green screen, then of course you could put anything you wanted inside of that green screen area.
Right.
But it just occurred to me that maybe you could use image magic to work on some of the frames in a video clip to insert a green screen where you wanted a frame like that to be.
Yeah.
Well, or you could just make that invisible, or what's alpha. You can paint that to alpha.
Well, with image magic, you can define a rectangle within an image to just paint like a green rectangle there.
Well, if
You
you put
could
it
do that with a script to do that, like for a whole line of
instead of using
Right.
green or blue, if you paint it to alpha, then you don't end up with any chance of that halo coming up. Those problems.
I will say, whenever I did recreate Steve's video there, just editing, all right, let's take this. I did actually do the picture-in-picture with Caden Live. So the PhreakNIC 17, 18, 19, and now 20 videos are done entirely in Caden Live. So if you're not seeing them on YouTube, it starts off with a title slide, which then goes down, and then it has three. So the title slide, and then this one will actually have the speaker. Oh, you can skim that one.
When he was doing this, when I made the original video, it took me about a month, and I'm not including the time of just finding clips to add. It was off and on, did it a couple hours a day, about a month. I kick all the files over to him. 4 hours later, he has a replica of what I did. I was like, well, there you go.
I cut my knee and was, all right, well, I'm sitting here. I'll play with video editing, yeah. So I was kind of seeing this one. All of this is actually done inside of Caden Live. And with this transition, there we go. That transition from large to small, all I did there was actually define start at this size and my next keyframe go down here. And then it actually interpolates for you the sizing of it all. So I thought that was kind of very slick feature of that. So try to move on. GIMP, it's the standard standard image editing thing. As you said also before, image magic, you can say script, draw a green box here, do all this. So GIMP though has all kinds of filters you can use. And if you get the gray GMIC, it's an extension to GIMP. I do some photography on the side as well, and so I found a lot of additional features, additional filters, and different capabilities that GMIC actually provides. So
You got to watch out about adding filters to GIMP, because there's some filter packages out there that have a whole bunch of filters that are identical to the ones that came with GIMP, except they have different names. So you end up with this big list of filters that half of them do the same thing as, but they're just named something else, but they're off. Which, I mean, it's not bad, it's just you need to watch out. Go check the forums on people talking about the packages and see what they're saying to see beforehand whether you're going to use it or not, or the cautions you need to take, precautions you need to take before you use it.
So this is actually, PhreakNIC is you can do it in a standalone, but then they also have a GIMP additional GIMP plugin. So like for details equalizer, look at all these options you can play with.
That's just
Freaky details, that's a fun one. A mask creator, I don't know what half of these are. Yeah, more than
I just started learning how to use masks.
Yak effect? Huh. Frequencies, those are always fun. Fourier analysis. Fancy. So, I mean, you're looking at a ton of different things that stereoscopic 3D. I mean, so GIMP had a bit of a learning curve, but it's good. Try to get here done in a couple minutes on time. Audio, as you mentioned earlier on, sir. Audio, yes, is half the movie. If you have sitting there and you're watching your favorite movie on mute, and you're seeing a character walk across the screen, okay, not that big of a deal. You're seeing a fight scene, no music, no sound effects, just sitting there. It's really boring.
Watch Rocky, watch a fight scene from Rocky with the sound off. With the sound on, it looks like they're hitting each other. With the sound off, you can tell they're missing each other by forever. And it's just amazing. That's one of the classic examples about how important the sound is.
That's like, electric cars have better acceleration than drag racers, if you build it that way. But nobody goes to electric car races because it's silent except for a little bit of squealing of tires.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see that. They want the
That-
power of the.
That freaks me out
sound.
about hybrid cars whenever they start moving on their own without any sound. That just, I can't do it.
Maybe
But
someone should just
system
add
sound.
speakers.
That's right.
Me.
Well, Volkswagen's already been taken, to the woodshed about that. They added the speaker to make their car sound a little bit more macho.
You can play your system sounds from your phone with that.
I want to say I did read. I found an app at one point where you take in ODB to port scanner or a code Bluetooth thing, plug it into the port, and then that pairs with your phone. You plug your phone into the line in on your speakers, and then it measures. The port actually says you're going this many miles an hour and this many RPMs. And then it outputs over to the speakers now the sound of a Ferrari or something. So you got this little Civic going. To my opinion, that was a bit like, all right, you had to do this and this and this.
They said Volkswagen's not the only one that did it. There's a few other ones that have actual
Cadillac-
speakers to make it sound macho.
I think Cadillac added that, and this was a gas engine Cadillac. They added some kind of extra noise for their engine to make it sound a little more roomier.
Right.
Audio, yeah. As I think you said, audience, they lose interest fast with no audio or bad audio. If we're sitting up here just, if we're talking around, moving, dynamic voice, you guys are probably going to pay a lot more attention than if we're just sitting here and we're just talking like this over and over. Bueller.
Or if you're watching this with subtitles.
Yeah. So, music, that is a nightmare. Steve can probably talk quite more about that. Probably see him afterwards.
Yeah. The quick thing about music, the notes you can hear, you can go and delete those out in Audacity. And that's where that ambient noise comes in handy also, is if you got your passage, you got your clip, you go a little farther on both ends of the clip, and whatever they're doing, if you can get ambient noise without any music on it, and then you can use that to fill or make another track and overlay it, whatever, that helps. But copyrighted music is just such a pain. Even if you're using it completely legally fair use, even they don't have to give you permission for you to be within fair use guideline or a fair use zone, and you can do it commercially too. Problem is, as soon as that YouTube filter detects it, or the YouTube bot detects it, then whatever you put up is stuck until you get your DMCA appeal done, or what, all that other jazz, whatever. But I've got, on my documentary, I've got clips from several other documentaries where they put light music over the background of the terrorists that they're talking to, and they're not my terrorists. They're other guys, and I've got to pull as much of that music out as I can. I'm going to put other music over it, but that was the artistic problem for me, was their music didn't go with what I was wanting to do there. So, and you've got clips from different sources that don't have the same sound in the background going on. So if you get all that out and put your own stuff over it, that helps. The biggest thing's artistically, and you've got all that copyright jive to deal with.
What is YouTube looking for? What did you think?
As far as I know, it is. It's got a hash of every copyrighted song that's been uploaded to them. Everybody claims to have a copyright. Every work that they've got on YouTube is they've got the footprint of it, and then they're looking for the way those bits come out of the stream.
Did you ever see that Android app? I think it's called Shazam.
Yeah.
You can, you click on
And
that
that's
with any
fast.
song that's playing, and it'll give you the lyrics and tell you all.
That's the same. It's the same concept. The way it's identifying that song, but now YouTube misidentifies things all the time too.
And how would it know if you had the rights to use it?
Well, they don't know. That's why they flag you first, and then you got to prove to them you have the rights, or you got to prove to them that you're using it within fair use. You got to prove to them, the whole. But they'll flag you before anybody else complains, or they'll wait until or if somebody complains. Let's see, the podcast tested. Their music that they had commissioned for that show, somebody else claimed that as their work, and then they ended up having to go through. I heard them complain about it on a show at least a year after it happened, and it still wasn't straightened out yet. So, what we're talking about here is you're creating something, you want to get it out there, and if it's being blocked by your primary outlet, then you're not able to get your work out for other people to see. So,
Like if you want to get something out before the election, say, and you put music in there and it gets flagged and nobody sees it in time,
right,
then you kind of defeated your purpose.
that's a good example. Or just like the documentary I've been working on for 4 years now. If I ever get it, the holdup is FBI documentation. I'm waiting on them. But if I ever get it done and I put it out, and then a week later it's down, it's like, what did I work on this for 4 years for, or whatever it ends up being, if nobody can see it. So yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Just gonna continue on. So now you have your sources, you have it encoded, or you have it all recorded, you have it all edited, now to put it all together and render it. So there's tons of different formats, codecs, bit rates, resolutions. I mean, just between, if you want it on this screen on a wide screen, or did you want it on a 4x3, or did you want it by a 5x4, or did you want it 1x1? Depends on the intended audience, intended viewing method. and even as we talked a little bit, different frame rates. Did you want it in super fast, 100 frames a second, 60 frames a second, that crazy weird 48 frames a second? Do you want an old school film, or do you want to look like a soap opera at 30? So there's all kinds of rabbit holes we can go down with this one, but probably if you have questions about it, probably me. But I know a lot more of the I've delved a lot more on the technical details of it. So, all right.
If your users are, have low throughput, probably want to get your video down to the smallest size that it still looks good and you can still tell what's going on. If your users are, if they're a bunch of home theater people in Los Angeles, you can make that thing as fat as you want, and
They would complain you compressed it.
and the downside of it is, movie example, 2001: A Space Odyssey. The only thing that doesn't look right in the whole movie on Blu-ray is the monolith on Earth. In 70 millimeter, it looks perfect. In Blu-ray, it looks like someone just put that in post. They whited out, or it looks like it was green screened in or something. But yeah, the higher your resolution, the more flaws it shows too.
Yeah. Has anyone ever gone back and watched some of the old Next Generation on Blu-ray? Something you can pick up later on. In the first episode, Riker puts his hand on the wall. At the time, it's like, oh yeah, that's it. Looking back though, you watch him and you see the wall move, and the hole is. Oh, okay.
Don't lean against the scenery.
That's theater.
Blu-ray 2001: A Space Odyssey versus 2010. The attention to the detail on the sets is absolutely remarkable. 2001, everything looks perfect. Every pod looks like a real live operating space pod. 2010, it looks like I painted it with the help of my granddaughter. So.
And just say that, some actors are not quite ready for high def. Is that it's sort of funny, especially some of the,
You can fix that.
semi-low budget things. It's like, wow, he really did a bad job shaving today.
You can Gaussian blur that in post. And
CRF.
Bitrate. So CRF. If you say bitrate, I want a bitrate of 5 megabit. Well, you're guaranteed 5 megabit. Okay, but for a soap opera where they're just sitting around drinking tea, you don't need 5 megabit for that. CRF is a way of doing a 2-pass quality video in a single pass, and it works entirely off of motion. You do not say I want a bit rate of X. You say I want a quality of X, and then it will do It'll do its motion estimation and everything about that. That was one of the key things that brought me to Kdenlive. OpenShot and a couple of others, they were fixed bit rates or average bit rates or variable bit rates only, and the others had CRF. And I was like, I'll go with that one.
And it's constant.
Constant rate factor, I believe. So we're actually out of time. So if you have any more questions, hit one of us up afterwards. We'll be here. Thank you.